Tonight on Cosmic Cantina, we're exploring the theory of cryptoterrestrials. As the Emerald Tablets suggest, stop searching above and start looking below. Not there. Hey, eyes up here, buddy. Could UFOs and alien contact all be explained by a race of beings hiding among us? Get paranoid and start accusing random people of being a seed-stealing alien, because we're coming in hot. I'm your host, Melissa Tittle, and every week I go to my favorite bar, Cosmic Cantina, and kick back with my co-hosts, Josh Golembeski and Matt O'Connor. We talk about aliens, Bigfoot, ghosts, ancient cultures, and anything from the unseen world that needs a little illumination. Welcome to Cosmic Cantina. I'm your host, Melissa Tittle, and tonight I am drinking a rosé all day. Josh?
I'm offended you even asked what I'm drinking, Melissa Tittle. You know what it is. I'm a one-love man. I'm a one-woman man, and that woman is Ghostfish, the world's greatest gluten-free beer. Ghostfish is number one. Even if you can have gluten, Ghostfish is still like a top 5 beer of all time for me. So there we go.
Oh my God, will somebody get this guy a sponsorship? All right, Matt, what are you drinking?
Yeah. I'm drinking a local brewery's beer called, it's a Crystal Springs brew, called the Blood Orange Kolsch. And it's good. It's so good. It's just dreamy.
My mother told me yesterday that I have to stop swearing so much on this podcast, so I'm going to try to be a lady this podcast and
Did
not
you get grounded?
Fucking swear. Okay, so just so everybody knows, I'm going to calm it down. No swearing, everybody.
All right.
No dick jokes.
I'm not going to make that promise. Okay.
All right, where are we going to go today? Well, we're going to go inside the Earth. We're going to talk about things that might exist there, beings, other humans, all that stuff. But let's start with an article because, I just love articles because I'm such a nerd. So let's start with the CNN article. It's titled, "Aliens Definitely Exist, and they could be living among us on Earth," says Britain's first astronaut. Ooh. Helen Sharman, who visited the Soviet Mir space station in 1991, told the Observer newspaper on Sunday that aliens exist and there's no two ways about it. There's so many billions of stars out there in the universe that there must be all sorts of different forms of life. They will be just like you and me, and they might be here on the planet already. And we simply just can't see them, because they're not any different than us. She was a chemist, spent 8 days as a researcher on the space mission when she was 27, making her one of the youngest people to enter orbit. So this story is kind of fluffy. It doesn't go into anything super deep, but there's a lot of astronauts that come out and have theories about alien life, but she's saying they're already here, they're living among us. So that goes into a little section I haven't done in a long time, which is digging in the dirt.
Digging in the dirt. So dirty. Oh. Wait, that's not how it goes.
I love the extra push at the end there, Matt.
Josh, you know what? Let's play the real one. That was great. Don't get me wrong.
Digging in the dirt.
So dirty.
Stop it, you guys. I specifically am writing a show on the god Thoth. Thoth is supposed to be an Atlantean priest, if you know anything about any of this. Atlantis is an ancient society that existed, civilization that existed before Sumeria, before Egypt, all that jazz. So, Thoth, apparently no one really knows the true author, but considering the teachings, they believe that Thoth wrote the Emerald Tablets. And I found this section in the Emerald Tablets in Book 8 that talks about inner Earth beings and also them living among us. So
wait, before you go on, can you do a 101 about what the Emerald Tablets are?
Just so you know that the Emerald Tablets, if you've never heard of them, it's a series of basically almost like hymns, like a very short Bible. It's about 90 pages, very thin book. Emerald Tablets were supposedly actual green tablets written in jade, carved with all of these hieroglyphs. And from that, somebody translated that and put it into a book, and we still have it today. So if you think about how old the information is coming from, we're talking about like 13,000 years ago. Of course, it's been passed on through Greek literature and all that kind of stuff, but the information supposedly comes from 13,000 years ago. So whatever we have been dealing with as far as inner Earth beings or beings that are here that look like us, that maybe are aliens. It's from a long time ago. All right.
Boy.
So I'm reading this verbatim. So interject anytime that you want. I mean, it's very romantic in its delivery. Okay, here we go. Speak I of ancient Atlantis. Speak of the days of the kingdom of shadows. Speak of the coming of the children of shadows. Out of the great deep were they called by the wisdom of earthmen, called for the purpose of gaining great power. Far in the past, before Atlantis existed, men there were who delved in the darkness, and they used dark magic, calling up beings from the great depths below us. Forth came they into this cycle. Formless were they of another vibration, existing unseen by the children of earthmen. Only through blood could they have formed. Only through men could they live in the world. In ages past, they were conquered by masters driven below to the place whence they came.
Ooh, there's so much to take away from that. Wow, that was cool.
Right?
Yeah, I was thinking gin. I was thinking like 9 different things. Yeah, that was cool.
Right?
Yeah, it covers a lot of bases, yeah.
Emerald Tablets, Book 8, if you want to check out what I'm reading. There's one more passage that's interesting, but this gets into more like reptilian stuff. It says, when the blood was offered, for they came, they were to dwell among men. In the form of man they were among us, but only to sight were they as men, serpent-headed when the glamour was lifted, but appearing to man as men among men. They crept into our councils, taking forms that were like us, and they slayed our kingdoms and our arts, taking rule and form over common man.
Wow.
Ooh.
That's creepy.
Right?
Wow.
It sounded like the start of that they were summoned through blood. It was like only through the blood or something like that, right? Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah, it's true. So basically, we're going to talk about this later in the podcast, but if you are in contact with other beings and you have the ability to bring their vibration into yours, you are then transferring your vibration into theirs, so like blood into blood, right? So they had to become they had to become human to exist on this planet, but they just look just like us. So whether it's serpent-headed or in the beginning of the passage, it talks about how they summon these beings from inner earth that dwelt below us. It's not so much hell, but that they brought them up from the surface.
That relates to something I'm going to go into, actually, which is very interesting.
I mean, that could be the origin story for like so many things we're seeing today. That's amazing. Like, it literally could be the source of all this stuff we talk about. I mean, if you're taking it literally and that is real, then that could be the origin story for everything. This is like, I never knew this about the Emerald Tablets. I'm now actually fascinated by it instead of being like, yeah, the Emerald Tablets, whatever. Nerds.
Yeah, lame. Yeah, sure, whatever.
Are they legit?
Melissa.
Do we know the tablets are legit? Is it real?
Well, okay. There's one thing about the tablets. Do I know that? Do I know if Thoth, the god Thoth, who lived 13,000 years, do I know that he carved these into an emerald tablet? I don't know, but they have been around for 2,000 years. So either way, they're not new. We'll put it that way. They're not new.
So they have been. No one's seen the physical tablets, but they have been mentioned in other writings.
Ever seen the physical tablets ever?
Okay.
But so let's just say, okay, you know, because the teachings are supposed to be older than Hermes, which this could have come from, right? So Thoth is just another name for Hermes. Thoth is the Egyptian version. Hermes is the Greek version. But if that didn't even exist and Hermes just made it up, it's still 2,000 years old. It's still pretty old, maybe even older than that.
So it's got to be legit.
Yeah.
So this is not a new concept of talking about inner earth beings or serpent-headed beings or the fact that they're among us and they look like us, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Interesting. Okay.
Ooh. All right. So also, we came across a book. Actually, Matt came across a really interesting book of what's it called again, Matt?
It's called The Cryptoterrestrials by Mac Tonnies, who is no longer with us, unfortunately. He's dead. But yeah, it's a pretty interesting. Sorry,
Sorry,
I backed myself into a corner and then I went in the wrong direction.
No disrespect to the author, but that was weird. That was funny.
No.
That was weird.
Yeah, He
That was
died
weird.
a young man, and it was pretty tragic, which was shitty because he had some interesting ideas, I feel, in this book. But yeah, go on.
So Matt came across this book, and there was an author that we actually know, Walter Bosley, who was a pseudo-author in the book. What was his name? Like Mr. X or something in the book? Because he couldn't actually...
I think it was Mr. X, yeah. So he kind of
X.
contributed to a section in the book there, yeah.
But he couldn't actually be part of the book with his full name, even though he's an author, because at the time he was working in counterintelligence. So he has a story about inner Earth beings that's really fascinating. So I'm going to play this interview now. Check it out. Walter, tell us why you went under a pseudonym of this book, and tell us the real story.
Well, at the time that Mac Tonys interviewed me, I was working in essentially counterterrorism profession, you might say. And at the time, my employment was kind of sensitive. I had to be able to work in the field, that kind of thing. So I was using a pseudonym for anything that I wrote or anything that would get published. And I did that up until 2005. And I left that line of work back then, about 15 years ago now. And since then, I, of course, have talked about this incident numerous times, written about it in a book that actually takes what I discussed with Mac even farther, because I was able to do some research on my dad and his time in the Air Force and such. And the story I told relates to something that happened to my dad when he was in the Air Force in the 50s. So it really enlightened me as to my dad's experience, and yet didn't change my view on the what I think is the existence of these cryptoterrestrials.
And what are the cryptoterrestrials? Tell us a personal story of what your view, why you came to this conclusion of what the cryptoterrestrials are.
I'm somebody who, I've written about it. People have heard me interviewed. I've had my own weird experiences from the time I was a teenager that I can remember. And but my dad had this story about when he was in the Air Force, which he started telling me about in the early 70s. And it involved, according to his memory, according to him, it involved what happened at, Roswell in the 40s. Essentially, my dad was in the Air Force in the mid to late 50s. He ran pilots through altitude chambers, and his unit that he was in would do the ground testing for pressure suits and what would become spacesuits. His unit specifically tested the Mercury program spacesuit. A lot of people don't realize the Mercury program started out as a United States Air Force space program. There was no NASA when the U.S. started working on Mercury. Well, this brings us up to the late 50s. And my dad's story, when he was back at Maxwell Air Force Base, Gunter Air Force Base specifically, for some advanced training, he and the guys he worked with were flown to Wright-Patterson and shown the bodies that were retrieved from a crash of another civilization in the desert in New Mexico right after the war. About 10 or 11 years before. Then they were told that this had happened again. There had been another crash. But they were told this wasn't an extraterrestrial civilization, that it was a civilization that was underground, that had gone underground thousands of years ago after a cataclysm on the surface of the earth. Just the kind of Richard Shaver type stuff, that we hear, and have heard for decades. Well, he is part of this retrieval, this recovery operation. And while he's in the underground, while the U.S. Air Force is trying to help find the live crewmen, because this civilization came to our people and said, hey, we need help. So the U.S. Air Force is down there in this cavernous area, helping to look for the pilot from this downed craft from this other civilization. And my dad and another guy have an encounter with underground people. They startle each other. The guy my dad's with is killed. And shortly after this, my dad gets out of the Air Force. The story he told is about this crash retrieval. He tells me this before any book on Roswell was ever published. I believe the first one was in 1980. He's telling me this story since 1974. And for years, I have no way to confirm it or verify it. It's just this weird story that happened to my dad. Well, eventually I get into the Air Force, and I am told that the incident happened. I am told that they used hypnosis to suppress